Hello, hello. Bl'Artagnan here with another Ancient Memories Desch Lufenia run. We're bringing a speed down team with Garland, Kuja, and Arciela, taking advantage of those various auras and unique speed down debuffs, along with Leviathan to really give us as many turns as we can against these guys. Arciela is also here to help kind of shut them down in the latter half of the fight when they start going to murder mode. I will say that I definitely misplay this fight, and I was tempted to go back and re-record it because there are a lot of suboptimal plays throughout it, but I thought maybe it'll be helpful for people to see, kind of what I did wrong from a learning perspective. I'm hoping, maybe you'll glean some things and be like, maybe, I should keep that in mind going forward, or, I do that sometimes, maybe I shouldn't do that, or ideally you'll look and be like, oh man, sure, I'm glad I don't do that. We'll see. In any case, one of the things I do pretty consistently throughout the course of the fight is, I don't break them in the wrong order like I did there as often as I could, which is good. Keep the break order relatively clean throughout it, which is important if you're going to be trying to delay people a bunch with Garland. But I definitely play too conservatively, especially with Arciela here. I'm concerned about Kuja and Garland's longevity, and I should be spamming her skills to kind of make that up, but I also am wanting to keep as many HP silences as I can for the second half of the fight, and you'll see that I definitely overdo it in terms of conserving those. Kuja, on the other hand, is there's some legitimate concerns about his longevity here because his skills don't hit that hard, and so we're going to be in for a bit of a slog fight. Cryle honestly probably would have been better, but I wanted the speed down. Now here I make a call and kind of brainlessly use the EX to keep the buff refreshed and almost end up in a bad spot. Luckily they end up cleansing and delaying themselves, which lets me kind of climb out of it, but it does lead to a really, really sad Garland EX. Go ahead and reapply our speed down effects. There we go. And you can see these guys tend to move really, really fast, but thanks to all the speed down, we're really helping manage their turns. I do kind of appreciate that the fight has distinct phase feels between the two stances and the 50% they're going to kill you mode. It gives a kind of a sense of progression's the wrong word, but it makes the fight kind of a evolving thing as you progress through it. A lot of the fights we've had, the evolution comes from them just getting some more stats, and so having the mechanics kind of shift a little bit as it goes I appreciate what they were trying for, although I don't know if just having them kill you if they act is necessarily a phase that I want half the fight to be. Yeah, for now, kind of lucking out with the HP attack there. I think at this point we're getting to the point where their all attacks are going to actually be dangerous and something to watch out for. So Arciela's HP silence is going to start helping us a bit. Because as you know, the HP requirement on this fight is actually really insanely tight. It's 1,500 hit points, which is basically any damage at all, practically speaking. And Arciela, well, a solid healer. I can't you can't guarantee she's going to fill you up, especially at the amount of damage they put out late in the fight. So the fewer attacks you can take, the better. So they're HP attacking with Garland out of some concerns about his longevity as well. Refreshing Ring Holy. Yeah, you can see, we're taking something like 5 to 6 turns for every turn they take, which feels quite good. It's kind of funny. Speed Down, Speed Down is another form of turn denial, like deleting and delaying, but it doesn't have the same feel as they do, because you are letting them act. You're just letting them act way less frequently than you are. That's what I tell myself in terms of how this is a fair strategy, and all that. Fair, what am I talking about? It's a PvE game. I think that's a big thing to keep in mind when kind of evaluating this game and its mechanics, because I think people have a tendency to kind of view things through the lens of PvP, because that tends to be the gold standard for games of any sort of kind of vaguely competitive nature. If we're playing, I don't know, tic-tac-toe, I don't think we're gonna be talking about metagame and strategy to the degree that people do with video games. I definitely left myself open by saying that. It's okay. No one ever watches the videos this far through. I'm sure you you didn't hear that. But what I'm getting at is, in terms of being like, oh, this strategy's cheap or cheesy, I do find it kind of funny that people look down on some of them, or use the term, well, Yuffie notwithstanding, use the term cheese. Because at the end of the day, it's a mechanic in a PvE game. Like, the only people who are really getting cheated out of stuff are people who worked really hard to do something, and then, like a quote-unquote legit run, and then someone uses like Eldnarsh and quote-unquote cheeses the fight. I mean, in my opinion, if you use Eldnarsh, good for you anyway. Just that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, criticizing a game for being PvE is a little bit silly. So there, gameplay thing. I brave attacked the Kuja because I didn't want them to break the whole party with that all attack, because our turns, you see, are all stacked up. And with bosses, A, B, A, B, if they get a stacked turn like that, you break them both at the same time if you can, because that pushes their turns all back and robs them of the consecutive turns. I didn't want that happening, which is why I brave attacked there. It felt pretty darn good to have our turns all stacked up and have to worry about that, compared to usually it's the other way around. Now, they've cleansed, they're under 50%, it's time to turn up the heat. Get it, because he's a fire enchanter. I slay myself sometimes. My goodness, I'm clever. So we're also going to add in Terra's Meteors to get another speed down effect. Because at this point, as we said, this is the you don't get to act anymore phase of the fight. So we're going to go ahead and start unloading the good calls. I do something that in hindsight, I don't think I should have maybe done this. I bring in Friend Garland for Arciela. The reasoning for this is, I thought to myself, well, Garland BT effect is really good, but so is BT phase. What if we had Garland BT phase while under the effect of Garland? You see what I'm trying to do there. Hindsight, I probably would have been better off just what's the word? Using, burning out my Garland, just spamming his skills instead of doing those HP plus attacks, and then have Arciela be buffing and Friend Garland, who then later would swap out for my Garland, who would then use his burst effect. You see what I'm saying, Because what I do here is, this is another mistake that I hope you learn from. I jump into my Garland's burst effect way sooner than I should have. I should have spent a few turns with the Garland friend on the field, take advantage of that burst effect, and then before it runs out, pop my burst effect so that when Arciela comes back, she can enjoy a few more turns of that burst effect in play. As you know, same character burst effects do not stack, so I am kind of robbing myself of a good bit of potent buff value here, which I realized that midway through the burst phase, I was like, what am I doing? But a 2 million damage burst phase feels good, and it delayed them a whole bunch. It was not a waste, it was just not optimal, and once you get to the later stages of a game like this, a PvE game where, you know, the devs are trying everything in their power to kind of sell their characters, optimal is kind of the name of the game if you're not going to be using the characters they're trying to sell. Looking to you, Young. That being said, I'm kind of beating myself up a bit with this whole optimal play thing. It still works. We still clear the fight. Maybe not in as few turns as we could have. I probably could have, you know, as I said, I could have done this a whole lot better, and I'm hoping that this proves instructive to folks in terms of kind of helping them identify areas of improvement in their own gameplay, or at least serving as a cautionary tale. But, yeah, I guess that's my little self-deprecating rant about how I used Garland's Burst while Garland's Burst was still there. So at this point, another thing you'll notice from this whole situation is they're getting real low. The double Garland has done its job in terms of like melting these guys, which is great. It's cool. I guess I could have used Kuja Burst and stacked that with Garland Burst, but I wanted the extra delays, and I think that was the right call to make. The upshot of all this, ooh, look, Ultima hitting for good damage. That man, Garland BT is a hell of a drug. The thing here is now that Arciela is going to come back in, and she has like goddamn 14 turns of HP silence left. Sorry, 12 turns, miscounted. And we're not going to need 12 boss turns of HP silence, so you see what I mean when I say I really could have gone harder with that. Kuja, on the other hand, is very nearly spent, and I'm trying to be mindful of that, using some HP attacks here and there. Garland also is looking quite low. He only has, I think, 4 total skill uses plus his EX rotations. So, keeping in mind how low they are, I do a couple of HP attacks. More, as I think I've said elsewhere, I tend to be a very conservative player with my skills and my resource usage in this game. Maybe not like gem usage. When I say resources, you know, skills, calls, AAs, summons, burst effects. Those are all resources that you use to get the complete in the stage, and I tend to be very cautionary with my use of them. But hey, at the end of the day, we got the clear, and that's what matters in a case like this. Wasn't elegant, wasn't pretty, was hopefully educational. And using Kuja again did feel good. It's been a while, and he's always very fun to use. Fun animations. But there we go. Desch Lost Chapter cleared with this other team. I hope you enjoyed. Consider liking the video and subscribing if you did. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Adios.